Why nice people always get hurt. The people who hurt the most are not always the weakest. Sometimes they are the ones who gave too much, for too long, without ever asking whether the other person deserved it. Kind people often believe that if they remain patient, understanding, and generous, others will eventually treat them with the same care. But life does not always reward kindness with kindness. Sometimes it rewards it with expectation. And once your generosity becomes expected, people stop seeing it as a gift. They begin seeing it as your duty. This is where many good people quietly lose themselves. Not because they are too kind, but because they never learned where kindness should end. At a small secondary school near the coast, there was a teacher named Claire Bennett. Claire was known for being the person everyone could depend on. She stayed after school to help struggling students. She covered lessons for tired colleagues. She answered messages late at night. She brought food for children who arrived without breakfast. And whenever someone apologized for asking too much, Claire always gave the same answer. "It's fine. I'm happy to help." But slowly, helping stopped being something she chose. It became something people expected. Teachers began leaving unfinished work on her desk. Parents contacted her about problems outside her responsibility. Students entered her classroom during lunch without asking whether she needed rest. Even the head teacher began assigning her extra duties because Claire never complained. Everyone described her as wonderful, but very few people asked whether she was tired. That is one of the hidden dangers of being known as a strong, kind person. People become so comfortable receiving your care that they forget you also need care. Psychologically, this often happens through a pattern called reinforcement. When someone repeatedly asks for more and you repeatedly say yes, they learn that your limits can always be moved. Not because they are necessarily cruel, but because human beings adapt quickly to whatever is consistently available. What begins as generosity can quietly become access without permission. Claire did not notice how much it was costing her until a student named Noah Reed entered her class. Noah was 13, quiet, observant, and unusually mature. He rarely caused trouble, but he watched people carefully. One winter afternoon, Claire found him sitting alone in the classroom after everyone had left. "You missed the bus," she said. "No," Noah replied. "I wanted to talk to you." Claire sat beside him. "What's wrong?" Noah hesitated. Then he said, "My older brother keeps taking my money." Claire's expression changed. "Does he threaten you?" "No, he asks for it." "And you give it to him?" Noah nodded. "He says he needs it more than I do. And if I say no, he tells me I'm selfish." Claire thought for a moment. Helping someone does not mean allowing them to use you. Noah looked at her. "But what if saying no makes me a bad person?" "It doesn't," Claire said gently. "It means your kindness has a boundary." Noah lowered his eyes. Then he asked a question Claire was not prepared for. "Do you have boundaries?" She smiled automatically. "Of course." Noah looked around the classroom, at the stack of extra papers on her desk, at the cold cup of tea she had never finished, at the messages appearing constantly on her phone. Then he said quietly, "You tell everyone else they can say no. But I've never heard you say it." The room became silent. Claire wanted to explain. She wanted to say that adults had responsibilities, that teachers were supposed to help, that people depended on her. But the truth was simpler. Claire was afraid of disappointing people. For years, she had confused being needed with being valued. Whenever someone asked for help, saying yes made her feel important. It made her feel useful. And somewhere deep inside, she believed that if she stopped giving, people might stop loving her. This is why genuinely kind people often become trapped. They are not always giving from strength. Sometimes they are giving from fear. Fear of rejection. Fear of conflict. Fear of being called selfish. Fear that their worth will disappear the moment they stop being useful. And when kindness is driven by fear, it slowly becomes self-abandonment. The following morning, Claire found 3 requests waiting on her desk. A colleague wanted her to cover another lesson. A parent wanted a private meeting during her lunch break. The head teacher had added another task to her schedule. Normally, she would have accepted all 3. Instead, she stared at them for a long moment. Then, she declined the lesson. She moved the parent meeting to another day. And she told the head teacher that she did not have the capacity for another responsibility. Nothing dramatic happened. No one shouted. No one abandoned her. One colleague looked surprised. Another seemed irritated. And for the first time, Claire understood something important. Some people did not miss her kindness. They missed her availability. There is a difference. The first few weeks were uncomfortable. Every no felt like guilt. Every boundary felt rude. But guilt does not always mean you are doing something wrong. Sometimes guilt is simply the feeling of breaking an old pattern. Claire remained kind. She still helped students. She still listened. She still cared deeply. But now, she stopped rescuing people from responsibilities that belonged to them. She stopped answering messages late at night. She closed her classroom door during lunch twice a week. She allowed others to be disappointed without immediately trying to repair their feelings. And something surprising happened. The people who truly respected her adjusted. The people who only benefited from her unlimited availability became distant. At first, that hurt. Then it brought clarity. Because boundaries do not destroy healthy relationships. They reveal unhealthy ones. Months later, Noah stayed after class again. This time, he was smiling. "I told my brother no," he said. Claire smiled back. "What happened?" He got angry. And then, he stopped asking. Noah paused. "Did you learn to say no too?" Claire looked at the quiet classroom. The unfinished work that could wait. The tea she had finally learned to drink while it was still warm. "Yes," she said. "I'm still learning." Noah nodded. "Me too." And perhaps this is the truth nice people need to hear. Your kindness is not the problem. Your empathy is not weakness. Your willingness to care is not something you should lose. But kindness without boundaries teaches people that your needs are optional. It tells them that your time is endlessly available, that your forgiveness has no limit, that your silence means permission. You do not need to become cold to protect yourself. You do not need to stop caring. You only need to understand that love without self-respect eventually turns into resentment. A healthy boundary does not say, "I do not care about you." It says, "I care about you, but I will not disappear in order to prove it." The right people may not always enjoy your boundaries, but they will respect them. The wrong people will accuse you of changing because they were comfortable with the version of you that never said no. Let them notice the change. You were never placed in this world to become endlessly available to everyone except yourself. Kindness should be offered, not extracted. Love should be mutual, not measured by how much pain you can tolerate. And being a good person does not require becoming an easy person to use. So ask yourself honestly, where in your life have you been calling self-abandonment kindness? Maybe the lesson is not to care less. Maybe the lesson is to stop giving people access to the parts of you they repeatedly fail to respect. Because the kindest thing you can sometimes do, for yourself and for others, is to finally say, I care, but this is where I end and you begin. And when you learn that, kindness stops becoming the reason you are hurt. It becomes the strength that no longer costs you your identity. What is one boundary you know you need to set but have been afraid to express? Share it only if it feels honest. And subscribe to VeraMind, not for easy motivation, but for stories that help you understand the hidden patterns shaping your life. VeraMind, truth behind every story.